Welcome, folks. Today we will be having 23rd virtual meetup, okay, and we will be having Vishal Parmar. Before starting, a huge shout out to Browser Stack, our exclusive sponsor for all our community events and premier sponsor for conferences. Folks, I'll just scroll up Vishal on the stage. Hi, Vishal.
Hello, Arun.
Perfect. You can just introduce yourself and then we are good to go.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you belong to. Hope this one starts your weekend on a good note, and our speaker will try our best to do so. So, myself, Vishal Parmar, I'm having IT experience of around 8 years, just over 8 years. I started with more of automation background, then did mainframe development for a couple of weeks or major part of 2 months, and then switched to the exhaustive functional testing, automation testing, and performance engineering as well. So within that 8 years, I've seen various things such as having the automation on various platforms, be it web, be it mobile, be it desktop, be it any other application as well. And then for performance for be it web or be it API, and then having the performance of browser based or protocol based as well. So that's the approach which I have seen. And other than that, from more of a professional perspective, I'm a more of solution driven person and a person who believes to better the current situation, not to look for the best approach, because when we see the best, we tend to have an approach that there is no further extension to it. So I try to make it better every single time. And hence, I have more of a saying that I would be preferring quality over quantity. It's better to have good quality rather than exhaustive quantity. So that's me. And with that, lending towards the topic for today is the test data. What is the importance of test data and how we try that within automation, performance, and functional testing as well. So before that, I'll try to share the screen. Okay, great. Okay, great. So what I'll try to do, try to have it in the presentation mode. Okay, so again, welcome to the 23rd virtual meetup of the test track, and the topic for me, which I've been privileged to get the opportunity to share with you guys the experience that I had, is the importance of test data in every aspect of testing, be it functional testing, be it automation testing, be it performance testing that we have. So a quick overview of the index, that what we are going to cover. First, we're going to see the why of it, why test data is required. Then a difference of static and dynamic test data and what dynamic test data brings. So by first we'll try to compare both of them. Then we'll see the uniqueness of data, how to create it runtime and how to have it security compliant as well. Because now we are in a phase wherein we have to adhere to security compliance as well, be it with any of the entity, and test data is the core of it as well. And as every testing is followed by a practical approach, so we'd also see a practicality of the same, where we would see how static and dynamic data would differ as well, and how that would help us in our day-to-day activities. And last but certainly not the least would be a thank you note from my side, and you can ask questions in between as well, and we'll also have dedicated slot in between as well for the Q&A. So I'll be moving to the next slide, which is the why factor. So first of all, test data that is required, that is the data that we either generate or choose to meet the execution precondition. Execution preconditions, such as, let's say we are working on an e-commerce website, the main precondition is to have a user. What is the user that we're going to perform with? What are the login credentials for the same? That is a test data. What product we're going to work with? That is a test data. What payments we're going to perform? Is it going to be Google Pay? Is it going to be Amazon Pay? Is it going to be Paytm? Any other platform that we have? That is again a test data as well, which eventually is required to run either one or more test cases. Then the another aspect of is the verification, that we would verify the application's behavior under various conditions. That it should work for all of the test data, not only one set of test data. That if we have a username and password, we need to check that with all the combination rather than focusing on only one username and password as well. And with by doing so, what we would get, we would gain the faith in the application, that we as a solution team, we as a delivery team would have a faith that the application that we are delivering, which we are handing over to the customer, would work for various combination of test data. And apparently, we'll also validate the compatibility of the application, that it would work with the various combination as well. How compatibility comes into picture, that we would see in the next slide as well. Now, the factor for static test data, what does that bring? First, it brings the coverage. It has a good coverage that we can have with the application. But a thing with test data, which is of static, is it provides a limited coverage, because let's say static test data, we are targeting an e-commerce website and we create a static username password combination for 50 users. So it would validate the application with that 50 users, but that's a limit that we have. If you want to go beyond over 1,000 or 5,000, that is a limitation. So static test data gives us a limitation with it. Now, the same example, from 50 to 5,000, or from 50 to 1,000, or even from 50 to 1 lakh, which might be required performance as well. The efforts required to do so, to either maintain it, to either update it, or to either enhance it, that is very high. And another aspect, which is the linguistic application, that let's say we have a website, consider example of Amazon. It works on various languages. We have to create data for various languages as well, be it French, be it Italian, be it English, be it Hindi as well. So all of those combination we need to take care of. And if we need to take care of static data's maintenance, would be a effort as well, compatible. Now, we can check the functionality with the static test data, but it is not compatible with extensive functional testing. By extensive, I mean to validate that on various data combination, whether it is username and password, password of 10 digits, password of 15 digits, password of boundary condition, which we have seen in testing terminology, that the boundary is from 8 characters to 32 characters. So we should check with 7, with 8, within the range of 8 to 32, and beyond 32 as well. So in such cases, the compatibility takes a hit with static test data, and again, automation as a factor as well, wherein we tend to check the application with various combination. Static test data is again effort consuming and is not recommended for automation and performance as well. So the savior in that case is the dynamic test data. So what does that provide? It provides a variety of data sets, and eventually it reduces the chance of data related defects. Why I say that? Because with dynamic test data, you would make sure that you are validating the application with various combination. Going back to the same example of 8 to 32, you will have those data being created dynamically. If the developer, or if the requirement gets changed from 8 to 32, from 10 to 45, with just that one change in the application, your code, your automation code, even your functional code would adhere to that, would tackle that as well. So with data related defects, that can be reduced with the dynamic test data. Now the efforts. We just need to mention it once, and it is easier to manage afterwards, as well as linguistic aspect. How linguistic will come into picture, how the setup will come into picture, how the management of that or the maintenance of that will come into picture, which we would see in practical, because practical way of explanation would help as well. And the compatibility of it, so it does provide comprehensive functional testing along with the automation and performance as well. Because within the automation, we need various data, even for the performance, we need extensive data as well, which dynamic data can help us in doing that. Consider a functional engineer, a functional tester being given a task to create 50,000 users, and opposite to that, a system creating 50,000 users for us. So that would help us in finding out the compatibility with. Now, a quick reflection on the comparison. So, static test data has limited coverage, dynamic has higher coverage, setup and maintenance is a task within static test data, whereas in dynamic, it's easy to spin up the test data sets and to maintain the same as well. The linguistic aspect, that is huge in the within static test data, and dynamic test data provides a various coverages in that, and the compatibility which we have seen as well for functional automation and performance, which is the key difference within static and dynamic. The next set which we have is the importance of dynamic test data in three aspects. First, it is unique. Why I say unique? We need to create 50,000 users, but all of those 50,000 users should be unique. It cannot be same user for 50,000 times. It will not, it will be of less fruitfulness if we create same users. It has to be unique. So we can validate certain things in that. It has to be runtime as well. Because every time, let's say it creates unique users, but every single time we execute, it should be created on that runtime rather than any manual intervention or a manual efforts in that. So that's the runtime and the security compliant. So if our application is such that it has credit card details, it has details such as username and password, which is not supposed to be stored in the application. It is supposed to be created within the session and should be and must be destroyed within the session itself. So that security compliant can be handled with the dynamic data approach, which we are going to talk about in a couple of minutes. So again, to revise the importance, there are three factors: uniqueness of the data, it is creating during the runtime, and as it is being created during the runtime, it is not being stored in our system. It is created when the execution starts. So by execution, I mean either functional or automation or performance, and it gets destroyed. It gets dumped at the tail end of the execution. So the data that we're creating, it stays within the execution only. It is not being stored anywhere. So that is the importance of it. Now, the phase which I love the most is the practicality of it. So I'll switch back to the section where we'll show the practicality of it. So if you can just confirm in the chat whether you are able to see IDE, which is IntelliAgent. I'll quickly check in the chat as well. Is it visible? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so what we're seeing here. So it is a portion of a framework which I've created, which is going to handle the static test data first, and then we're going to talk about the dynamic test data. And just to give a reflection of what we're going to discuss, I'll be giving you a walkthrough of the site as well. So the site that we're covering is Tools QA, and from that we have a practice form. So consider this as a registration form for your application. And for registration, majority of the scenario, these fields are being asked, consisting of the first name, the last name, the email ID for communication, gender of the person, mobile number, 10 digits, date of birth, which is an interesting field because date of birth should be at the execution. Let's say if today, which is 18th of November, if I'm supposed to have a date of birth of 18 years only, and if I'm executing the same code in the next year, that should be considered that on that date which it is executing, it should be as per that value so that we don't fall into any data related issues. Subjects, that is an interesting field as well. So which would be more of, let's say if I say computer science, it would have that part of
Vishal,
suggestive field.
Vishal, can
Hobbies
you hear
as
me?
well. Is there a question in between? I'm hearing something.
Yeah, Vishal, I was saying in the audience,
Yeah.
folks are saying that can you please zoom in the when you were showing the code, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Can you
Sure. Sure.
please zoom?
I'll do that. I'll do that. Yeah.
Okay. So,
Okay. Let me see. It should be in the view. Increase the font of all editors. Let me try one more time. Is this better, or should I increase a bit as well? Better. Okay. I'll try one more so it will be more visible. Okay. Great. So this is the font that we have. Going back to the application, thanks Arun for printing that. The going back to the application, so we have hobbies in that, we have picture in that, which is again an interesting factor that we need to have a picture, we need to have an avatar, which we would have seen in the recent years as well. That for any of the user, we would need an avatar for it, current address, city, and state. So address related fields. That's what we are seeing. Now, going back to the code, what it has, ignore this piece. This is for the driver initialization and the other factors. So let's say for fields which we are targeting, we have first name as John, we have last name as Doe, we have the email ID as test@test.com, we have the gender as male, 10-digit mobile number, date of birth as 1998, subject science, English, maths, and accounting, hobbies, which is music, current address 15 Yaman Road, Yemen, and state and city, NCR and Delhi. So let's execute this and let's see how it works. So this is static test data. It should work. So let's try that. In between, if you have a query, please drop in the chat, and Arun or Shashank, if you can help me with any queries in the chat as well. Yeah. Okay, so it's setting up the browser. It might take a couple of seconds in this phase. There is weekend celebration in the backend, so pardon if you are hearing the background noise. Okay, it is taking a couple of seconds. Let it do that. And in the meantime, we can address any questions if there are any. Let me quickly scroll through the chat. Okay, increase the font, which we have. Okay, got it. So it has launched the website and it should perform that work for us on the website itself. So it provides all of that value, selects 1998 as birthday, subjects have been selected, hobbies is being validated, and even the current address along with city and state is being addressed as well. And it completes the execution. It works perfectly fine. There is no issue in that. But let's say on the same slide, on the same section, which is for this one, enter registration form for a student. So let's say in the starting of a year, starting of a semester, there are 1,000 students being enrolled, and it has been given a task for the testing team to validate that feature that 1,000 students are successfully getting enrolled. So what you would have to do in that case, you would have to create 1,000 first names, 1,000 last names, 1,000 email IDs, combination of gender as per the name and the last name, mobile number, 1,000 mobile numbers, 1,000 date of birth, various subjects as per the 1,000 combination, various hobbies as well, and again combination of address for those 1,000 users. What if we work with this? We have to create 1,000 combination of this many variables, which are around 4 plus 4, 8 plus 3, 11. So we'd have to create 11,000 variables, and we have to also tackle various combination. We have to make sure that the date of birth is different, the email ID is different, even the email ID is valid as well. When we create that manually, this might be a mistake that rather than writing test.com, you might write test1.com. That could be one of the issue that might be in creation of a user, and that would be a factor to not have proper communication, because if the email ID is wrong, the person would not receive the emails. If the mobile number is wrong, they might not receive the call as well. Even the date of birth, if the criteria is 18 years and by mistake I type in 19, let's say 88, that will not match it. I have to make sure that from the current date, 18 years is the minimum value that we can have, and let's say 25 is the maximum value that we can have as well. So those factors we need to consider. And let's add in a factor that we created a team of 100 testers and all of them created the data, and same thing needs to be validated every single year. So every single year that 100 or 50 testers needs to gather and would have to update the same set of data every single time to make sure things are being covered as well, which is a tedious task. It is doable, but it is a tedious task. But within testing, we are evolving. Within testing, we are finding out better ways to have solutions, smarter ways to have solution as well. That is the phase where dynamic data will come into picture. Now for dynamic data, let's switch into the next file. So this is a dynamic data for us. For that, we are going to leverage Faker, which is an identity as a Java, and it can be used in other languages as well, be it JavaScript, be it Python, be it Ruby as well. So it has that compatibility to various languages. And within that, it provides a vast platform for us to create multiple things. By creating multiple things, I mean user details, credit card details, birthdays, even the pictures, even the avatars, even the codes that you might see that whenever, let's consider the example of test drive event itself. When this opportunity was given to me, the first sentence was to introduce myself. So that is a paragraph that needs to be there. Consider that is as a registration form. That as a registration form, when you're creating the user, you should create a user summary, user introduction. So you need to have a paragraph, have a quote as well in that case. So Java Faker provides that visibility to us, that options to us as well. And how would that be working? Let's see that. So same combination, same set of data, first name, last name, email ID, gender, mobile number, date of birth, subject, hobbies, current address, state, and city. What we can do? We can create faker object, and within that there are multiple options. Let's just give you a quick glimpse of the option that it has. So it has demographic, it has company, it has date, finance, internet, even the university details. So let's say when you're enrolling to any of the website uh, for registration for the company, you might have to give your university details as well. So that can be one of the factor. Then the lorem which we have seen in the testing activities as well, the paragraph thing, name, address, phone number, ancient, animal, app, even the avatars that are there, even the artists that are there, and for those to have unique name as per their favorite series, be it Friends, be it Game of Thrones, any of the series that are there. So it provides that kind of options to us as well. The business is there, the code is there, color is there, commerce is there, country is there as well, along with the cryptocurrency, Dragon Ball Z, which I mentioned about the series, educator, esports, even it handles files, friends, GOT, Harry Potter for the Potterheads, How I Met, ID, job, and lots more. So it has lots and lots of options, and it goes on and on. Yeah, so all of those options we can leverage for our test setup. And how would that work? So let's say I'm executing this piece of code, same piece of code, but I'm executing with test data. See the difference in the execution. Okay, let me execute this, which would be a dynamic test. Yeah. And in the meantime, I can scroll in the questions. So there's a question which says, "What's the library being used for test data?" It's Faker, fake Java Faker for Java, and for JS, it can have Faker JS as well when used in automation for performance. So yeah, this is mainly for automation performance, but same can be exported and can be used in functional testing as well. So it creates the data. So the one that it created had a birthday of 1992 and the last name was Gupta. We'll re-execute it and we'll see whether it creates new data for us or not. And it creates the address as Bangalore that we have. Let me re-execute it. Yeah, thanks, Tanmay, for the reference of the GitHub. With the one specific static test data instance you use for user, what was the test intent? The intent was there that if we execute the same, if the requirement is to execute the same for 100 users, for 100 test cases, that for every test case, we need to create a different registration form. That static approach of having 100 as static data would be time consuming. So to handle that as a better approach, the one that we have is the faker entity for us. So this got created as 1960 as the birthday, and the name was different as well. So that's how every time the data is unique, every time the data is during the runtime itself. If we see the static data, this data is stored in the system. If let's say I'm executing it after 1 year, I can see the data as well. The dynamic data, this over here, creates during the runtime. There's one more question which say, how do you know it uses the unique data every time? So yeah, that is a feature which we will see in the upcoming section as well. With one specific, I think yeah, that we have covered. Will Faker take care of PI and credit card sensitive data? Yes, it would. We would see that. Who validates the dynamic consistency of Faker or search capabilities? Yeah, that's what going to cover in the further section as well. Glad that this is going to be an interactive one, and we are getting bulk of questions in that as well. So moving to the part wherein the first question was regarding the PII and credit card. So in the same entity, let's first see a section wherein we are going to create runtime details for user. So which would be from here until here, which would be this. So it creates a username, it creates a password. So an example that I mentioned, to create a use password from 8 to 32, and that also to create whether you want to include uppercase, whether you want to include special characters, whether you want to include digit as well. So that thing can be given as a password for the faker to create the avatars. So if let's say you want to have an avatar and you have to create it as well, any emoji icon which you want to mention, any code that we want to mention as a user details, character name that we want to provide, and any summary paragraph that we want to have as well. So if I execute this piece of code, it would give us the runtime details for this many values. So let's see that. Now it's not going to open the website because I've commented that piece of code. It's just to reflect how the data will be perceived and how the data will be created. And next step, we'll see the credit card. It's just opening the browser as a default entity which I mentioned. Yeah, and then we'll see how do we validate the dynamism of the web details that we have. So we have seen the first name, the last name, and even here we can see the username. We can see a password combination which has a number in it and which has upper and lowercase as well. We can see a JPG file of an avatar. We can see a emoji icon. We can see the quote as well if we want to have any in the user creation, even the character name. So we can see that Frank Buffet Jr. and the code which we can have as well. So that's what with the user details that we have. And the way it is dynamic as well, that every time it gets created during the runtime, and we can also limit that as well. Let's say if we want to create the password entity which we have seen and the uniqueness that we're going to see as well. So that is another aspect of it, that it is a data which is created in unique way. It is a data which is created in more of the runtime, and that combination of runtime and the uniqueness of it along with the security compliance, that makes it dynamic as well. And the credit card which we mentioned as well. So let's see that. So what we need for credit card? We need a card number, we need a card type, and we need a card expiry for the credit card details. So all of them would be used with Faker itself. So we can see in the business, there is a feature called credit card number. There is a feature called credit card type, and even there is a feature called credit card expiry. So we can execute the code, and let me do one thing. Let me comment out this line so it will not execute the URL. Okay, let it execute. I will manager it a bit later. And you can tell me what to do. Java Faker. Thanks, Gayatri. Okay, it's opening the browser, which it has, and let's see the credit card details. So it is creating this particular credit card, and the credit card type is Diners Club, and the expiry that it has is 2015. So we can control that as well, the credit card expiry. And as well, if you can recall that I also mentioned about linguistic data. So you would have seen all of the username that are being created are Indian username, are Indian email ID, even the first name and last name combination as well. So that is because when I created this one, I mentioned to create with the language and the country as India. If I change that to US, it is going to create the username combination and all of these details according to the US dynamism. So herein, even the address was of Kolkata, in the previous, I believe it was for Bangalore. Let's see that for US, does it adhere to that things or not? Why that is required, I'll also have an example for the same. Okay, let it run. Okay, so the one that we can see for the US one, so the language and the country did work. So it is now creating a username password combination, which mainly adheres to the country that we have provided, along with the addresses as well, even the password and the other things as well. Now, going back to the feature wherein we discussed about how to have it unique. So I'll scroll to the last section and then we can cover the in-between section as well. So herein, there is a piece of code which I have mentioned, which would make sure that the username that we're getting are unique. So it creates during runtime. It creates during the execution itself. There is a chance of it getting duplicated. There is the slightest chance, but the chance is there, and we need to better it. So what we can do, we can club that in with the Java or the programming language that we're targeting, and make sure that all of the username that we are targeting or that we're creating are unique. So let's say there is a ask to create 100 unique usernames. We are extracting faker object to have the usernames, and in that itself we can check whether it is in the existing list or not. So by that we will also eliminate the minor chance of having a username duplication or even any data duplication that we have. So with this, even the slight combination that is there, even the slight chance that is there to create it and to duplicate it, we would be able to removing that as well. So let's execute that piece as well and see how it works. Now it will not open the browser as I've commented the code. It should just spawn up the browser and not load any URL. Okay. So it has created within 7 seconds the username that we wanted. So if I scroll all the way down, it is creating all this user, Shane Jacobs, Curtis Hart, even Jamie Bankner, Vivian, then it has Alton, it has Paris, it has Marybeth, it has Zeta, it has Stephanie, it has Eastman, it has Nicholas. So all of the username that we are creating, the combination of that is unique by the code reference that we have made sure, and even the slightest chance which was there, which is there, that with a huge combination it might duplicate. With the help of coding, we can remove that as well. So that's how it will be considered. There is a question. Let me see that. In case I wish to run multiple users simultaneously, how we can do that? So in that way, you can create all the users as a before test as within the prerequisite, store it in a JSON file. Then as per the test case, you can point to that JSON file, and as per the configuration of it, let's say there is multiple users required for 4 browsers for 4 instances. You can create 4 different files. Each browser will point to one file, and during the tail end of the execution, you would also delete all of those files as well. So that's how you will make sure that the code is created runtime with the data, and at the tail end of the execution, you are removing the code as well. The next one is, what is the difference between running a static set 1K times, writing separate validation for each field versus using a dynamic data running the case one time? Which one is better and why? So I'll reduce it down to 100. So we have just seen that with this value of a while loop, we can create 100 unique users. With the same test case that we have, we would have to create 100 combination of this, and we have to make sure we can always use the random string, random number, but that will be creating a random values with a number or with a, I can say, a special character in it. But to have more of a combination, the faker can help us in a quick manner. And if we multiply that by 100 or even to reach to the value of 1K as well, the efforts would be enormous in that, and it will be huge. Because let's say the main field, if we refer to mobile number, so mobile number we need to create for 1K times. If you're creating it manually, there might be a chance that you might create with 9 digit, with 11 digit, or with even shorter digit as well. So that way we can help in with that with the dynamic data and with the faker data that we have. So question is from front end perspective. So yeah, so that's how your test data prerequisite would help in that. So if you are having it with dynamic data with faker, your time will be squeezed, your execution time will be reduced as well. Because with 1K validation for front end, you have to make sure that the execution time is of utmost importance, and the prerequisite is included in the execution because it is a part of a test. So with dynamic data, you will be creating all of that automated. Even you can have that in the batch execution as well overnight. So there's no manual intervention required for it. So the functional tester can focus on more detailed or more exhaustive scenarios on the application rather than creating 1K test data for the application to work upon. Please, can you help us with the source code of the faker object class? Yeah, so it would be in this one. So which would be Java faker. The one that we have should be this one. This can help. The Java.io can help in understanding the same, and it has all the details. Even there are multiple medium platforms which would provide the same details as well, along with the default Java Faker document that they have. So this would provide you all the details which is there, and even the ways of working for the same. So if we move towards the execution, let me see if there's another file. Can you show the configuration of this faker prerequisite or what step to follow to use this library? So yeah, this is a simple one, Shrikant. So you just have to add in as a jar file in the Java or use pom.xml. You can import the dependency. So within the pom.xml, it would be somewhere here. Java Faker 1.0.2. You can import the dependency or the jar file, and then you just need to import it as a variable, which we do for any other files, and then you're good to start. You just need to import two things and one in the file. Create a variable like this, wherein you can mention the local if you wish to. If you don't want to mention a lookup, you can skip that as well. So as it says, it can create a default one, it can create a random one along with the random services as well. So there are various combinations to do so. And once you have created over here, we can directly use that and even the combination of that as well. Okay. Hey Tanmay, can you please post the question in the Q&A? What's the difference? I think yeah, we've got that covered. If I wish to do negative testing, is it possible to create test data for it as well? Yes, we can. So let's say that taking the example of this one. So if you want to, the password combination is that it has to be within 8 to 32 characters. So you can duplicate the same, make this as password incorrect. Yeah. Mention the minimum length as 1. Mention the maximum length as 7, and even if the test is that it should include uppercase, we can mention this as false as well. So in this way, it would create a negative test data for us, and we can cover that as well. And keeping an eye on the time as well, I'll quickly glimpse through the other points which I had. So let's say for job fields that we want to cover, and if you have any follow-up questions, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well, or you can drop that question to either Shashank or Arun, Shashank or Arun to put you on the spot. And if you can give me that question back, so I'll be more than happy to answer it. So let's say for job details, we have a section typo. We can do that. Yeah. So let's say you want to see the job field along with the position, title, and seniority, even with the company name, that you want to have a company logo, you want to have a company URL. So all of those things which can be required in the data is available in Faker. If it is not available, there's a workaround to do so, the one that we have seen for uniqueness. And the birthday feature, which I talked about. So we can also create a birthday. Let me put this. We can create a birthday within a range. So let's say if today I'm executing, which is 18th November, it would create a birthday if the age is in between 18 to 75. If this code gets executed even in 2033, it would create a birthday of 18 to 75 only. So that is the way that it will be a dynamic data, that it would be working at that time and as per the current status as well. Then even let's say if you want to create a future date, let's not go beyond 10 years, but let's consider current example, that on 18th November, I want a date to be in the future, but in the range of 35 to 20 days, minimum 20 days, maximum 35 days. So it would change when we execute on 28th of November. So we have to make sure that it is being handled as well. So that is the future aspect to it. Same applies to past aspect as well, that if you want to create a date within the past, falling in the range of 5 to 15. So if I execute all of that, okay, let's quickly see the output of it. Did I execute? Yeah, it's an execution. And this is being provided in other languages as well. So let's say if we take a reference of JavaScript, you just need to import a package, do npm of JavaScript Faker, and you are good to use that in the same way which we use any other npm package in JavaScript that we have for Node.js. So if I quickly see the job field, it's manufacturing, key skill is leadership, supervisor, even the position as well, seniority. company name along with the company URL, along with the company logo. So all of those things are being added. The company profession as well. The birthday, let's say 2002, so it adheres to the value. The birthday range as well, 1970, because I provided the maximum value of 75. Future date is 10th December, which is what, around 15 days from today. So it is in the range, and even the past date is November 4th, which is 14 days. So again, that's in the range as well. So that's how this faker would help us in creating multiple set of data. To have it unique, there's a slight possibility, but with help of a bit of coding and circling it, we can remove the uniqueness duplication as well, and we can have the uniqueness in the same. Then we can have all of the data starting from avatar, starting from user images, starting from emoticons, starting from summary, and even going to the value of dates as well. So, and there are many more aspects to it. I've just cherry picked a few of them, but there are many more aspects in the faker which can help us reducing the test data efforts and having the data being created in runtime as well, and helping us as a testing community to focus more towards the functionality depth and have the data being handled by automated tool for us and to create that as the limit that we wish to. So I've tried my bit to share what I've experienced within the dynamic data and how data helps in our day-to-day activity. Hope you have liked it. Hope you have enjoyed it. And if you have any question, feel free to drop me a text on the I would say LinkedIn itself, and I'll be more than happy to address all of that. So on that note, I'll be quickly moving to the slide, and on the slide itself, I would like to thank all of you for joining this one and to have this interactive, because I've thoroughly enjoyed it to because of the questions. And if I'm not being able to answer or you're not satisfied with the question, please drop that question in the chat itself or in the LinkedIn. So I'll be more than happy to address that and we can discuss it as well. So on that note, I'll be handing it over to Arun. Thank you, Arun. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Vishal.
Yeah.
I think we have few more questions in the Q&A part, like Q&A tab. I just want to check like if you have answered all these questions out. Sandeep is asking what key three micro font ends and testing, including some mock websites as well, if you can.
Just a second. What key three resources would you suggest to practically learn about micro frontends and testing? So yeah, the main three resources which I would suggest is to see the various combination of datas, and again in the testing itself, going back to the same example, having the birth dates that's been selected. So that's one thing which we need to handle upon. And the mock websites which are there. So this demo QA has various features of websites and various elements as well. So we can use that. There is one called, I think, Website University. So we can use that as well. And along with that, there is one, I think, as automation practice. So that can be used, in even for the API testing as well. So API testing, all of this data would be fed into as well. So that is, I think, cloud APIs. Regress is the one which I use for API as well. So you can use that for all of the learnings. Please, is the data created dynamic? Sandeep, I hope I've answered that question, and if not, we can discuss further as well. Latif is asking, please, the data create dynamic. So yeah, I think the data is being dynamically created. The main factor of that is the uniqueness, partial uniqueness, I'll say, because of the bulk of data that needs to be created, which we can handle with the code. And the main thing, it is security compliant and it is runtime. Why I focus on security compliant? Because in the recent years we would have experienced multiple policies and multiple things as well. So we have to make sure that the data that we are using is not being stored in our system. So let's say if I go to the example of static data, all of the usernames, even the birthdays as well. Birthday is a personal identification. If we are storing that, it might lead to a situation where a person doesn't want to be into or organization doesn't want to be into. So that security compliance can be reduced, not completely omitted, but can be reduced to a certain value with the dynamic data that we have. And please, can you help with the source to faker object class? So it's the one that we have seen in the Java doc. If I wish to do negative testing, I think yeah, that we have covered, and even that goes way beyond the board data as well, even with the username combination that we have as well. Then what is the use case for faker if I already have the test for all possible validation for all field present in a form? So yeah, so you have all the combination, but let's say it is a linguistic application, and you would have seen usage of diacritics that let's say in many of the languages, mainly French or Portuguese, you would have seen a special character on a special emoticon or a double dot, even a slash on the name itself. So even that needs to be validated. There are certain websites which might not even consider that as a valid character, and when you print it, it might be something else as well. So with that linguistic approach, we can validate all the combination for all the possible data. So let's say your website works for username and password, but does it work for French username and password? Does it work for Portuguese username and password? Consider a giant like Amazon or Flipkart. You would have to make sure that certain things are being handled as well, and even the field validation for all of the combination that is there. The next one, I think, is again from Latif. Can you help with the link showed where to get the faker object? So I think, yeah, like, that is being dropped in the Java talk, which is there. Arun, any other question which I've missed?
Yeah, that was the last question, Vishal. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you in the community itself.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Arun.
Perfect. Thank you very much.